Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Gig Stories podcast with me, Alex, and him, my Scottish beautiful friend, Chris Payne. And it's hard to not start this episode without mentioning the loss this week of Taylor Hawkins. It's interesting to me how I have been affected by other people's deaths over the years. You know, this whole conversation about not celebrity, I don't like that, but musicians, sports people, some people are affected by those kind of deaths. And obviously death is inevitable and is also very sad anyway, but this one really sort of upset me. And I felt this one because I've been a big fan of the Foo Fighters from the off, you know, and Taylor Hawkins absolutely was. All those things that people have been saying are absolutely true. There's no one lying or trying to make him sound better. He absolutely was one of the greats, and I was so lucky to have seen the Foo Fighters live so many times, and he was just incredible. And I'm glad that my personal last memory of seeing them live was with my family and friends at Glastonbury, and being able to see Taylor do his David Bowie bit where he comes down to the mic and Mr. Grohl sits behind the drums. And so just seeing that was just a wonderful thing. So yeah, it was really really sad, and can't help but think of his wife and his children. Did you ever get to see the Foo Fighters, Chris?
I did, but I saw them early doors. So I certainly haven't seen them in the last 20 years. But I saw them at Tea in the Park it must have been 97, 98. I mean, you know, early.
So you saw, because Taylor joined them after the recording, I believe, of The Colour, the Shape, didn't he? So you saw Taylor playing with them?
I think so. But yeah. I was looking back and realized that I did see him playing at Tea in the Park, but not with the Foo Fighters. The Food Fighters. That's a different band.
The Food Fighters.
Yeah.
That's different. Did you see him with Alanis Morissette?
Yeah, 96.
No way.
Yeah. So, I mean, I was never a massive Alanis Morissette fan, but obviously at a festival, you've got an opportunity to see bands that you wouldn't normally pay over your hard-earned readies for. So I thought, and they were great. And obviously at that time, you know, he was playing, but I didn't really notice it because, you know, as I've discussed before, and certainly in terms of the photography drumming project that I've done, nobody looks at the drummer, or they tend not to, unless they are a drummer themselves. So yeah, I don't particularly remember Taylor Hawkins playing drums for Alanis Morissette in 1996, but turns out I did see him before he joined the Foo Fighters.
Well, that I think the Foo Fighters was what really allowed Taylor to become more of a focal point, because I think when you're a band created around an artist like Alanis Morissette, you're all in it together, and you're the band behind.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, in none of the tributes did they say his drumming on Ironic was exceptional. Do you know what I mean? It's not. It's not what he'll be remembered for.
But that album, actually, from a drumming point of view, is just brilliant. And I've looked at footage of him playing with Alanis Morissette, and I know for us that were around when that album was released, which wasn't it the same year as the Bends? Was it 95?
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah.
I like that album, and I know she released 6 or was it 7 singles. I think it was like some kind of record. Pardon the pun. And he's great. He sounds great with her, but I've read so many things this past week. Anything that's come up, I've sort of given it a read. In fact, my old CBeebies friend Benka G wrote a lovely article. In fact, we'll put a link on that because he's a huge Foo Fighters fan. But also, I've got the Dave Grohl book And
Yeah.
so the quote about him meeting Taylor Hawkins and both of them knowing as soon as they met each other that they were going to be best friends, and this was it. But
Mm.
what I really liked was Alanis, after, because I think there was a slight crossover and he had done something for Dave while he was still with Alanis. And apparently Alanis just went to Taylor and said, so what are you going to do when Dave inevitably asks you to join the Foo Fighters? and she just acknowledged that is where you need to be, Taylor.
That's your
And she'd
band,
said,
mate. Yeah.
yeah. And she'd said, you you know, I love you, thank you, but clearly you belong with Dave Grohl and the Foo Fighters. And you've got to, my main focus of sort of sadness is obviously being for his family, and selfishly that I'll not see him play live again. He really was wonderful, but also a thought for Dave Grohl, who just must be heartbroken, bless him.
Well, we'll put some videos on the website for this episode, and the video of him singing Under Pressure. It's great. It's just so full of joy. I mean, it's not. I mean, I love that song. I'm not a massive Queen fan. But,
me too.
But I do love that song, and I don't think their version is better than the original, even. But it's done with such joy and such kind of knowing that they're doing it out of love, but they're also doing it out of fun. And the fact that Grohl gets behind the kit again, and there's so much to like about the clip, and the fact that his voice is really it's a great rock voice, Taylor.
It is, isn't it? It is.
I mean, he wasn't hitting the notes, but he didn't try, and and that wasn't what it was about. It was about the spirit of the thing, and
What I like is there's almost another fantasy being played out. So as if life isn't amazing enough to be the drummer in the Foo Fighters.
Yeah,
it's like in the back of Taylor Hawkins' mind, it's like, I'm a great drummer, I've got a great life, but if I really had the best voice, oh man, I'd perhaps love to be a lead singer. Yeah. And so they're such good mates that Dave is like, come on, reenact this. And do it. And I know they did it in lots and lots of places, but my experience was at Glastonbury, where the crowd is as big as anywhere almost. And just for him to see that joy of him living out his really best life, right? It's just
absolutely. And then it made me think of when we chatted to Andy Day way back at the start of the podcast series, and we were talking about Glastonbury, the fact that Andy at Glastonbury, he wants something extra, he wants something a bit special, he wants a surprise. That was it. It sounded like it's his wish list for Santa. He said, I want a surprise. and that was the Foo Fighters' surprise that year, surprise.
And it's been nice as well seeing, because there's an awful lot of live music around at the moment, isn't there? All venues are full pretty much because of rescheduled shows and people getting out while they can. And it's been lovely seeing a lot of the tributes. So Sam Fender's drummer, Dino, no, not Dino, he had Taylor taped on his bass skin, and then Royal Blood, whose tour looks phenomenal. The visuals for it look absolutely incredible, and it's a massive screen, and it's the most wonderful picture of Ben the drummer with Taylor, and that is, I love that. And then the one that I really liked, because it's always nice to have an insight of these people and what they do and how they are, because you do often wonder, like, I don't know if this is true, but someone like Mick Jagger or someone really big like that, do they just get on a plane to a place, into a green room, onto the stage, back to the green room, on a plane, next one? And it was Idols, and they'd posted, now I forget which one of them posted it, But they were just chuffed to bits because it was, I think, a South American festival, and Idols were on in the afternoon, and they had a picture of Taylor, who had just sneaked in on the side and just sat down on the floor, so the crowd couldn't see him, and he just sat and watched Idols, and they were just so chuffed because the Foo Fighters were headlining, and they were so chuffed that Taylor had sort of turned up at 1 or 2 in the afternoon and had just sneaked on and sat down to, you know, to watch Idols. And I love stuff like that because we forget that, you know, these are music fans. These people are music fans. They love their music. And so Taylor would have been like, oh man, I've got to see this band. Idols are brilliant, you know. So
well, you mentioned Royal Blood. You mentioned Royal Blood there, and I know we chatted about Royal Blood the other night because we were both going, oh, bit gutted because we realised that Royal Blood were playing at the arena. Was it tonight?
Seen the news?
Yeah, Mike has contracted COVID. How gutting is that? But
these things are popping up.
Yeah, but was there a little bit of you that went, you know, hope he's okay, but I'm a little bit relieved because it means that I can go to the rescheduled one?
Yeah, I'm totally there going, right, I need to sort out some tickets.
Yeah.
I did. I said to Grace, I said to my daughter, I was like, she told me, she came and said, oh, Mike's contracted COVID. I was like, oh, that gives us time to try and sort some tickets for the reschedule.
That's it. Self-preservation kicks in there. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, that's another conversation, but you keep seeing these artists. You know, the other night, the Six Music Festival. Here's our sieg into the Six Music Festival. That's been going on, and our buddy and friend Chris Hawkins is down in Cardiff,
taking some amazing photos. He's taking some amazing photos on his phone.
Get on Chris Hawkins' Twitter.
Yeah, it looks like he's taken them from a moving car.
Yeah, no, and he's just embraced it and gone, come on, show me your shit photos. And it's really funny.
And I was thinking about sending in some, and then I thought, that's going to damage my brand, surely. If I'm
someone's done that. A photographer, she replied the same. She went, I can't do that because that might damage my profession. But here's one from when I was 13 in my school hall watching East 17.
That's the way to do it. That is the way to do it.
But he was so Chris Hawkins lived out, you know, pretty much my dream gig the other night, which was the Manics at Club Ivor Bar, and they never got to play it. They were supposed to play Club, and they cancelled it to go and sign their record deal, and it just
I didn't
never
realize
got round.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
So have you heard the cover?
I have. Just quickly, if you go to Hugh Stevens, maybe the Manics as well, Twitter, they've posted the original posters of that Manics gig because it was supposed to happen. It was literally like the day before or on the day they cancelled. We can't. We're going to go and sign this record deal.
Wow.
So it's there in history. These posters, you know,
they're worth a fortune.
Oh, can you imagine? I know. And so they played it the other night, and it was a good set list actually, because they played Methadone Pretty. I haven't played that for a long time, and they played a couple of album tracks from Know Your Enemy, which I thought was absolutely brilliant, rather than, you know, obvious singles. And yes, the cover, Chris.
Well, I've only heard that. I know that they opened with Motorcycle Emptiness, which is what a song to start on. Do they normally start with that? No, they don't.
Do you know what? In the past years, yes, they have done. They've sort of swapped it, but it has become a bit of a gig starter for them.
Okay, because I've photographed them a couple of times. One of them, was it at the first? Did the Manics not play the first Six Music Festival? I think they did.
Yeah, I think they did.
Well, I don't think they.
I think they did.
Well, I can't remember them starting with Motorcycle Emptiness, but that it's a
long time ago, mate.
No, tell me about it. Yeah,
we're 60 years old now.
Yeah, but yeah, the cover was great. Again, in just with real joy. It's not as good as
Madonna's Borderline.
Yeah,
absolutely brilliant. Borderline. It's a great tune as well, and that's a very Manics thing to do as well.
Yeah,
you know, they always love their their pop music. And the Six Music Festival seems to be going great. And there's, my girl, Little Sims, loving it. People are, I've been just fawning over her because last night was just incredible in Cardiff. I mean, Chris Hawkins, he was watching Pixies, Idols, and he was then introducing Porridge. And that was all in the Great Hall in the university, which is where I went to most of my gigs. And what a night that is. And then I say on the other side of town, as though Cardiff's big, a couple of minutes walk down from there, at St. David's Hall was Little Sims. And
we were mentioning COVID though, and someone who must be gutted is Gwenno.
She was supposed to be playing today, and she came on the other night and sang Spectators of Suicide with the Manics. Then so they actually brought her on and she sang with them, and now she comes out and says, I've got COVID and can't play a gig today. So I'm like, God, where will this end? And now we're all the Manics panicking and thinking we better all test this.
Well, at least you got to play with them as part of it. But,
absolutely.
Anyway.
But it's great, and we're not here to push the BBC or anything, but that you'd be daft to not get onto BBC Sounds and listen, if you haven't already, to all the sets, because Little Sims, Pixies, the Manics. My recommendation for this afternoon is Carr and James, and there's just so much going on.
Self-Esteem playing.
Self-Esteem. The big performance, as I told Chris Hawkins, is 3:00 this afternoon, and it's the big derby, Cardiff City versus Swansea at home.
Wow.
And to Chris, I went, stay in venues with the live music. Avoid all football fans.
Oh my God, yeah. But we went to a gig this week, didn't we?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I am very aware that I am always the dominant voice here. It's always me gabbing. But I do consciously want to stop you from talking about that because, listener, I just want to big up my beautiful Scottish friend here. And so we went to see Shed 7 the other night. And if you're regular listeners, you'll know that we're fans, but also friendly with the band. And Rick and the boys very, very kindly arranged for my daughter Grace, who's 15, and she's doing her GCSEs now as we speak. She's doing a photography GCSE, and they arranged for her to have a press pass. So she was in the photo pit and got to shoot Shed 7 and the Lottery Winners, the support band, and the wonderful Chris Payne, him who sometimes gets an opportunity to speak on this podcast, went into the pit with Grace and was the mentor and her guide, and helped her and took some sneaky photos of Grace taking pics of the band, which honestly just broke my heart, and me and my wife just brought tears to our eyes seeing it. And so Chris, you are beautiful for doing that, and I will always appreciate that. And she had such a nice time. She's a shy one, Gracie, but
she was measured. I mean, I mentioned on Twitter last night, I can remember the first gig that I ever shot, and I remember being so stressed about it. It wasn't actually in a pit. It was in a busy venue, but I just remember I put pressure on myself to get the shots, even though I wasn't even sure how my camera worked. I wasn't even shooting on the right format. But I remember putting pressure on myself, getting flustered, getting annoyed because I missed a shot that would have been great, but obviously it wouldn't have been great because I wasn't really taking good photos at the time. And you kind of get racked with self-doubt when you do this kind of thing. But I remember but Grace was fantastic, really chilled, and she had an issue with her memory card, and she just took a breath and she knelt down and she sorted it out. And I checked and made sure that she was okay with the memory card that she had. And yes, it was fine. And then she just got on with it. So, it's great to get one of those out of the way. And it was good because the pit wasn't too busy. I was telling her just before we went into the pit about photographing. I photographed Liam Gallagher just after the Manchester bomb, and it was the charity gig at the Ritz. And I thought, I need to photograph this, because you're not going to get many opportunities to photograph Liam Gallagher in a venue as small as the Ritz. So I contacted the PR and managed to sort a photo pass really late on, and I was dead chuffed. And then I got there.
Amazing.
I got there, and there were 20 photographers. There was a queue down the side, and what they had to do was split the photographers into two groups. And if you imagine the size of a photography pit, they split into two groups, and so the first group got the first two songs, and then the second group got the next two songs. So it was the first four songs that he was allowing to be photographed. Yeah, but even 10 photographers in the pit, it was ridiculous. And it was really sharpen your elbows, get the shot, and oh my God, so much stress. So I felt like last night, the other night when we went to Shed 7, the fact that there were only three, there was me and Grace and another photographer, and I think somebody from the tour crew came in later on and took a few. But I felt there was so much space. I felt like we could do cartwheels across the pit. There's so much space.
I've tweeted some, and we can. I'll put them on the Gig Stories page as well. And it's the pictures of that Chris took of Grace taking the photos. I've not really sat and looked through the pictures with Grace yet, 'cause she's not had time. She's been in school, and you know what? They could be rubbish, and I don't care. And she just wanted to get one out of the way, and she's going to sit down and go through them. So if there's some that she's happy with me sharing, I'll absolutely share them. But have a look at those pictures, because it just breaks my heart, and seeing that little 15-year-old girl there, and the band were totally amazing with her. I mean, they're a good band to shoot anyway. Tom on bass, he's always posing in the most wonderful sort of, he just loves life, Tom, and he's a sweetheart.
Yeah, there's a Nicky wireness to Tom thing.
Yeah, there is without the jumps. That's the only thing he doesn't do is the scissor kicks. Yeah. And then Rick Witter is the best front man, isn't he, to shoot, because he gesticulates, he's all over the place. Physically, he's brilliant.
Those hips don't lie again.
No, they do not.
But those hips do not lie.
And Paul is very cool on guitar, and has his stance there. So it was just great. And before we move on, they genuinely just sound better each year. And as you know, my George said, they're getting better all the time. Nice one, George. Yeah. And that's the first time we've seen them with Maxi and Tim playing with them, and they really refreshed the sound. Because I don't want to say added or better, because I don't want any, I'm not saying any negatives about Joe and Alan. I love them both, and they were and are fantastic, and Shed 7 were always brilliant, but it is what it is, and they are where they are now, and they just sounded incredible the other night. And it was great. And it's always nice seeing the ages there. It always blows my mind. There's always a young person at the front. It's like become a thing at a Shed 7 gig. And the other night it was an 11-year-old, wasn't it? A young 11-year-old girl who was at the front barrier with her family, and Rick sat and chatted to her and said hello. And
just after the first song.
After the first song. I'm like, you sit down, and told her that if she had any questions about the 90s, you can't remember the 90s. So
well, I gave Grace a little nudge at that point, because I don't know if Grace felt like she should only be photographing when they're playing, but I was like, no, you need to get
he sat down, go and shoot him.
Yeah, absolutely.
So thank you for that, Chris. It means the world to me. It was lovely. So
we have an episode, and this has really tickled me, because this is our first ever lost episode. It's an episode which we recorded probably in about April 2021. Would it be around about then? It will have
But
been.
yeah, a year ago.
Yeah. Oh, it might be over a year ago.
Oh no, it's a year ago. It's almost a year ago because I was working. Yeah, I remember speaking to him at a lunchtime when I had to tell him the news, and it was lunchtime. I was working on Justin's house. Random, but yeah, and that is a year ago. Yeah.
So basically, when we record a podcast, we tend to do them over Zoom, and with Zoom, not to get all technical, but at the end of the Zoom recording, you get 3 files. A file of me talking, a file of Alex talking, and a file of the guest talking. And then you
are getting all technical, aren't you?
Well, you mix it all up and you edit and all that kind of stuff. But I uploaded the files and realized that my part of it was completely blank, and I couldn't work out why, and realized that there's no way, because some of the questions that Martin was answering, I had asked, and me re-asking them without him being there was going to sound really weird. So we just had to put it down to experience and say, that's gone. We'll just have to do the interview again. And then I found the files again the other week and realized I hadn't lost it. I don't know what had happened, but I found the missing file. I found myself.
He's found himself through his Apple Mac.
Yes, through my Apple Mac. And so, anyway, I've edited it, and we have the interview that we did with Martin Carr of the Boo Radleys, and it's here for you now. How amazing is that, Alex?
Absolutely brilliant. I'm going to say no more. I'm going to shut up. Carry on listening to Martin.
Welcome to the Gig Stories podcast with me, Alex, and him,
Chris.
Yes. Now, you may know today's guest as the guitarist and songwriter in the Boo Radleys. You may know him as Brave Captain, or let's be honest, you might just know him as Martin. It's Mr. Martin Carr.
Hey.
Hi. Just pretend there's loads of applause there, Martin. There's loads of people cheering.
Well, I was a fan here before, but Chris got rid of him.
How are you doing, lovely man?
I'm all right, yeah. I've just got in from, I took Sonny up to a skate park and sat in the van while he went and, I don't know what he does. No, I don't know if he actually goes.
Now let's just clarify that Sonny is your son, and what's he now, 12?
Yes.
And so you're assuming that he skated. Is it skateboard or scooter?
Skateboard, very much.
Keeping it real.
Yeah. I was going to say it's coming back, but I don't think it's ever gone. But
you just stopped doing it, I think, Alex. You just stopped doing it.
Yeah, I think I did. I was always rubbish. Has that been a lockdown thing, Martin? Has he sort of started taking that up?
No, he started a few years ago and then kind of lost interest and went back to footy. But then lockdown, the first week he decided that he was going to get back into it, and he's just not stopped since. He's getting really good now. Yeah.
And so you've never been tempted to get out of the van and join him in the skate park?
I did it. I was 48 when he started. I bought myself one because I liked all the gear and I really liked the clothes. But I stand on it and I just panic and I freeze, and I feel like I'm 10 miles away from the ground.
You're like Michael J. Fox in the middle of that lake where the hoverboard isn't moving anymore.
And I cracked 3 ribs down at the skate park, and then I gave up then.
Wow, that's a sign, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, you cracked your ribs. You actually came off and cracked your ribs.
I landed on, you've got the gloves with the sticky out bits on the wrists.
Oh yeah, the wrist. Yeah.
I landed on one on my chest.
Oh.
I couldn't breathe at all, and all I could hear was Sonny saying, "Is Daddy gonna die?"
Not really.
Knowing you probably went, "Quite possibly, son. Quite possibly.
Yeah,
Couldn't breathe. What? So all in all, then, past few months have been really good for you. Then
I can roll down a gentle hill, but that's it.
Yeah, I can do that, but without the skateboard.
Yeah, without the skateboard, a grassy hill. Well, we appreciate your time. Appreciate you chatting with us and chatting about music, because Chris and I are both missing live gigs, going to live gigs. Chris, as you know, is a photographer, and so he often is shooting at gigs. Are you missing live music, Martin?
No, because I don't go to gigs. I stopped going. I stopped going to see bands probably in the early 90s. I used to go to a lot of gigs, but just to stand at the bar and drink. And then I just got I had anxiety problems, and it was just people. I couldn't be around that many people. But occasionally I would go if it was something I really wanted to see.
And what about after? Because let's be honest, you've even though you've had breaks here and there, you've often been performing. So obviously you had the Boo Radleys.
There's no people at my gig, so I don't have that trouble.
Well, I'm going to flip that then. Are you missing performing live, or have you been quite happy in stuck in your studio?
I do like performing live. I tend to overcomplicate it. I say, right, I'm just going to go out with my acoustic guitar and that's it. And then I think, well, I'll just get a loop pedal or something. And then I'll add a few more pedals. And then I think, I'll have to get someone to press a button here and there. And then it becomes a thing.
Yeah.
A huge thing that costs loads of money. And I lose.
And that is funny, actually, because as I've seen you sort of perform solo, there has always been different incarnations. You have had various setups, but is that just because, as you say, you get excited, your brain is all over the place in the planning, or is that how it keeps it fresh and exciting for you as a performer?
Yeah, I think so. I've done gigs with just I've got like a Rhodes piano, and I used to take that out, and I did that, and I did it just me and a drummer, and we were kind of hooked up with a couple of laptops. Mad Phil, the drummer. No, they were good gigs.
Shout out to Mad Phil.
Shout out to Mad Phil. And I've done gigs with like big bands, like 7 of us. Just me on my own. I really like playing on my own, just acoustic. It helps me focus, because all the noise when we're playing as a band, I just get, especially if I've had a couple of drinks, I just get caught up in the moment.
Listening to the Boo Radleys, I've had a day of Boo Radleys today, which has been lovely. It's really apparent how much is added, not just to the band, but kind of reversing vocals and lots of distortion. And do you think, was it you who was pushing that kind of elaboration on the tunes in the studio? What do you think?
Yeah, at first, yeah, we were kind of all into it. And there was a lot of songs that we never played live because we couldn't, and a lot of songs that were never recorded. We just kind of built them. We didn't record them live. We never rehearsed.
Yeah,
because I couldn't really play guitar that well, and I found rehearsing quite painful. There's no real payoff.
Yeah.
So we would I would make a demo and send it to the others, and they would add their bits, and then we'd kind of go and piece it together in the studio. And some stuff, a lot of Giant Steps, I don't think we ever attempted to play.
What, live?
Sometimes we did. Sometimes we had, I think when we were playing quite big venues and we had a bit more money, we were adding a lot more effects and sample. And Bob was triggering lots of samples off his drums. And
I suppose you do need that increase in kind of bodies to get something like Lazarus to get, it's such an overwhelming sound, when it comes in, the real hook comes in, you kind of need a full stage for that.
Oh, yeah, but I used to, I mean, most of the trumpets on that record are actually guitar.
All right, okay.
And so I should have done that live, but I just thrashed away at the chords because I was so lazy. And so it'd be one trumpet guy doing it, and it would sound, just be popping away in the background, and it kind of lost its majesty.
You've always been in my eyes anyway, a reluctant pop genius, music genius, and you've put yourself down already, which is no surprise to me, saying that you're a rubbish guitarist and that. But
no, I was then.
Right. Okay. But still, when you go back and listen to that music, there's a huge musicianship. And Chris, man, we've jumped straight in there with the big question. So I'm just going to point this out. Something that people have often beaten you with is the single Wake Up Boo.
Mm-hmm.
But I always said, if you sit down and listen to that as a piece of music, it is one of the most phenomenally arranged, complex bits of music I've ever heard. And it really is incredible. So who in the bands then, who was behind that? Who had that sort of musical mind? What was it, an out and out collaboration, or did that come from you? Because the arrangement and specifically on that song, but as Chris has alluded to as well, on Giant, a lot of the album on Giant Steps. So where did that come from in the band?
Like Wake Up Boo, it was the way it was written, and I did the harmonies. But anything that sounds performance-wise was Tim, the bass player. He's very musical, and just would run rings around me in that. I was more instinctive, whereas he knew his stuff.
Okay,
and
that's interesting.
Beautiful arrangements, brass arrangements, and string arrangements on different songs on album. I don't know if you know, but I did a photography exhibition year before last, and it was photographed portraits of drummers. And the first person I got in was Rob, and he was great. And I did his as a kind of Blue Note, a nod to Blue Note album designs from the 60s.
And Rob, let me just point out for people that are not sure of names, Rob is the drummer in the Boo Radleys.
Yeah. But then when we went into lockdown, I got in contact with some of the drummers who had been part of it, and he got them to do these little kind of 30-second, minute-long kind of drum exercises or workshops or whatever, so that people, if they were playing on their kitchen table, they could have a little play around. And Rob did one of Wake Up Boo and just demonstrated that whole Motown sound, which I hadn't really clicked when it feels like Wake Up Boo's always been there, and you don't really think about the ins and outs of it. But yeah, just that whole Motown influence that he had.
Yeah, I love that stuff. But that was we did it. The demo didn't have those drums on it. It had this weird kind of skipping rhythm that nobody liked, and I was listening to there was a jam compilation that had come out with demos on and B-sides and all that stuff, and there was the jam version of Solid Bond in Your Heart. It was a Style Council tune, but the jam version, and it had those drums on. And I thought, that's it, that's what we need to be doing.
Works perfectly.
But when we were in the studio, we were listening to thinking about the sound. We wanted it. When I hear Wake Up Boo on the radio, and it's not very often, I'm always surprised by how muscular it is. And we listened to the start of Rocks by Primal Scream, which is not a record I like that much, but the drums sound amazing at the beginning.
Yeah, they do, don't they?
Yeah, so we kind of work into them as our mood board.
That's not a bad mood
I think
board.
you mentioned the Four Tops as well. I think he was mentioning I think Rob mentioned the Four Tops as a bit of an influence, certainly in how he approached the enemy. Yeah.
Well, we've totally jumped there. I want to just take you back, because we like to talk about sort of musical upbringings. Were you born and brought up in Liverpool?
No, I was born in Scotland at the very top.
Get
A place called Thirst.
Thurso. Yeah, I've
Yeah.
been there. I've got a boat from Thurso.
Oh yeah, I've never been. Well, I've been obviously, but I've never been back.
Yeah.
Okay, and then where did you go?
My folks are from Manchester, and my dad was working at Doonray Power
Oh.
Station. That's why we were there. And then we went to Shropshire for a year,
Okay.
I think. And then we lived with my nan for a bit in Swinton in Manchester, and just around the corner from Sean Ryder.
Of course, yeah. Sean and Gaz. We've spoken to Gaz on.
He lived just around the corner from my auntie. I read his book. I couldn't believe it. And then we ended up in on the Wirral.
Right. Okay. Because maybe that's me being lazy or not realizing. I thought it was more of a. You grew up in more of a Liverpudlian surrounding, but actually you moved all over the place. Because in my head, I was thinking, Liverpool. It's such a musical city, isn't it? You think of Liverpool, and I think of the docks, the football, and the music. And I say music because everyone just says the Beatles straight away, but it's more than the Beatles as well. Even though they are just amazing. So I was wondering if you'd been surrounded, or by the music of Liverpool. But what was your musical upbringing? Were your mum and dad musical? Did they play instruments? Were they?
My dad's completely tone deaf. It's incredible listening to him sing. I would hear him. I grew up hearing him sing or these words, and then I would hear years later. I would hear a song and think, "Oh my God, is that what he was singing?"
Excellent. Like a musical jigsaw that you've just found the box for.
Yes.
But he had a record player. He used to buy records, so it was that. And I remember coming down at night and hiding behind the couch while he played his records. He used to play Every Picture Tells a Story, the Rod Stewart album, a lot, which must have been a pretty new record around that time. I think this would have been like early to mid 70s. And then I remember, and we used to watch Top of the Pops every week. And the first record I was ever obsessed with or ever really liked was a record called Billy Don't Be a Hero by a band called Paper Lace.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes, Paper Lace.
I love that record. And just, I just loved it. And Queen as well, Bohemian Rhapsody, when that came out, that video, if you're a little kid watching that video, it's just so mysterious and kind of spooky. And
Because there weren't really music videos before then, really, were there?
no, I mean, no, I suppose not. Obviously, the Beatles had done a couple,
Yeah.
and the Stones, but not in the same way it was afterwards.
Were you surrounded by the influences of, the Liverpool music scene as a youngster? Were you aware of it?
My dad wasn't a Beatles fan. He was a Stones and Dylan guy.
Right. Okay.
But when we moved to the house where I grew up in properly, we didn't have a record player. I don't know what happened to it. So I used to listen to the radio, and I used to get all of his albums out and put them on the floor, and his singles, and just look at the covers. Elton John, Goodbye Yellow Brick Road cover, I loved.
Yeah.
The Rolling Stones EP 5x5, and I just couldn't get over the way they looked. I couldn't believe they were British. At least two of them looked like Herman Munster. They were just so hideous looking, and I was intrigued. And the other one was The Times They Are Changing, the black and white cover, the Dylan cover. And I always thought that was a Manchester thing. I thought he was a mate of my dad's because he talks about him so much.
Oh, really? Bob.
Oh yeah, Bob or George Best. I thought he knew George Best as well because he talked about
Were you aware of them going to gigs? Did they go to concerts at all?
No, they used to go to social club, and there'd be a band on, like they'd have a guest singer, and there'd be a band that would be there every night. That was the first live music I saw, which I loved.
Oh, really? What were they like? Do you mean they were literally just local bands and it was covers and?
No, it was a like what would you call it? Like a social club band. So they would all have it'd be really smoky atmosphere, just hanging from the ceiling, and you could just smell beer and fags and perfume. But I loved it, and just seeing the instrument, and these guys would have a bass and a little drummer with his brushes, and not a little drummer, a drummer with his brushes in a little pit, and then people would get up and sing. And
how old would you have been then? Were you allowed in there, or were you sneaking in?
it was like Christmas and stuff when we were allowed in. You just had to sit, at the table and behave yourself. And that's kind of what got me into wanting to play. Just the physicality of the guitars and the bass. I really wanted to hold one. And
so you were straight onto guitars, were you? When did you get your first guitar?
I had lessons from a mate's brother, and I had a couple of lessons, and he lent me a guitar to take home, and my dad made me take it straight back because he didn't want me to break it. Yeah. And then Christmas 1982, me and Sice and my brother Callum got guitars for Christmas. 17 quid for a K. I can't remember what they were called, K guitar. I can't remember what the model. I think the first night we just took photographs. We've both got them somewhere. There's like 300 photographs of me and him and Callum just posing with our guitars that we didn't have any idea. And then the next night, Sice said, "Oh, my brother says he knows how to tune them. Bring him round." So we got round there, and his brother got Sice's guitar and tuned him up until every string snapped. And then he took my guitar and did exactly the same thing.
Cheers, mate. Thanks for that. How long was it till you went to your first proper gig? A gig where you saw who it was and went, right, I'm going to buy a ticket for that band.
Well, there's a couple. There's the first band that I saw was actually during a musical, like a show at the Liverpool Playhouse, I think it was, Yakety Yak, and it was the band Darts.
You and me, I don't know Darts.
Oh, they were like in late 70s. There was this 50s Schwaddy Waddy, and Darts were one of those guys. Just 50s kind of band, and it was a 50s musical. So they played live on the stage, every now and again when things are happening, and that was great. And then I went to see the Everly Brothers with my dad, my brother.
Oh man,
that was just out of this world.
That's a massive. I'm assuming that was a massive treat, because my mum would go with my auntie to the Everly Brothers whenever they toured Britain, and I remember it being a huge occasion. I mean, My mum was getting dressed up and off they'd go to St. David's Hall. It was a huge thing, and there was no way that any of us could go.
Yeah, well, me and Callum, my dad had really got this, and we were doing the whole rockabilly thing anyway. We had the quiffs, and we loved the 50s music. I was a massive Eddie Cochran fan. Callum was really into his Gene Vincent, and he went deep though. He went rockabilly, and then he ended up really liking things like the Meteors and the rockabilly stuff.
Yeah, the Meteors.
Yeah, we spoke with Matt Fraser, actor, musician, and he toured with them. Is that right, Chris? Or no?
He ended up doing a John Peel session.
The John Peel session
with the Meteors, and he was like, "Okay."
as their drummer, because they'd gotten rid. Oh, so your brother, right? Okay, and you went which way? Which way did you go then? Away from?
I went Duran way.
Yes, Adamant.
Well, so my dad knew that. Actually, no, that was before Adamant and stuff. Was before, and then it was a rockabilly thing, and then it was more Keith and Mary Chain and the Smiths, and
right. Okay.
And we sat behind Howard Kendall,
really,
the Everton manager at the time. And I had a pack of Chewits. My dad had bought me for the gig, and every time I finished one, I stuck it to the back of his Howard Kendall's jacket.
I'm guessing you're a Liverpool fan then.
Yeah.
It's what any self-respecting Liverpool fan would have done.
Yes. But this was 1983, I think. This was their comeback tour, so they hadn't spoken to each other for years.
Years, wasn't it? Yeah.
Incredible. But then the first one I paid money for, oh, this is so embarrassing, was the Thompson Twins. I went on my own to Liverpool.
You went on your own. I'm surprised at how many people are admitting to us that they went to a gig on their own, you know, and often their first gig as well. So the Thompson Twins.
Yeah.
Is that embarrassing? I'm not sure that's embarrassing, is it?
I really liked one of their records, one of the really early ones, and I chased that record right until they finished, and I kept buying them, and I didn't like any of them. But just, I don't know what happened. But that gig was filmed. It's on YouTube, amazingly. I haven't watched it. Yeah.
What year would that have been? When are we talking?
83, 84.
Okay. Royal Court. I love that venue.
Yeah.
I love that venue. It's
Alex,
a great
have you ever been to a gig on your own?
Yes, I have. I was thinking, I would have to think about which ones, but I've actually been to a few on my own. A couple planned, and then some sort of inadvertently. You know.
Yeah, I've only been to one on my own. Like a kind of gig, and I'm not sure I enjoyed it that much. I mean, I enjoyed the music, but just the overall feeling of, you know, not having anyone to kind of chat about it to. I went to see the NME tour in 96, 97, so that was the Cardigans and the Blue Tones and somebody, I can't remember who else was on it. It was a good gig, but nobody wanted to go with me, so I was like, oh, okay.
It is a funny thing, isn't it, going to gig on your own, or is it? I wonder if there's more people. Let us know if you regularly or have ended up going to gigs on your own.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't think twice about going to the cinema on my own.
Yeah, no problem.
I love that. I think I probably prefer that.
I've never done.
You've not gone to the cinema on your own? No. I mean, I used to work in the cinema, so I was going in my lunch break, and I just got used to just not having to have an opinion immediately with something. So yeah, I quite enjoyed that. But yeah, the gig, not so much. I think I prefer it as a kind of, not so much a communal thing, because you're obviously there with loads of people, but as something that you do with another. So how long until your first gig? Was Boo Radleys the first band, or what was your first band?
Well, it was me and Sice, and we had quite a few drummers, and we could never remember their names, so we just called them. We called them by their first name, but then we called them all Best. So we had Rob, Best, and Nick. And that first gig, it was at a posh school in near Birkenhead, I think, called St Anselm's. And I don't know why we were asked to play, or whether we were asked to play. But there's quite a few bands on that day. I've got photographs of it somewhere I was looking at, and Sice played bass, but he could only play bass if he wasn't singing. So he would sing and then play bass for a bit and then sing. And it was actually, when it's the first song, it was Curtains. You know, Curtains actually drew, and there we were. And by the time the curtains got across, I'd finished the first song. The drummer was still like putting his shoes on, and put the curtain back across while we got ourselves together.
How old would you have been?
I was 18.
What were you called then?
Fourth Man.
Fourth Man.
Yeah, I was reading a book about the Cambridge spies, and it was called The Fourth Man. That was as far as my imagination went.
That's pretty good. I mean, as first band names go, I've heard some absolute rotters. That's not bad.
When we were in school, Sice always wanted to be called Cellulosycho. What was it? Cellulosychogenesis or something like that.
Cellulitis what?
Cellulosychic regenesis. I think that was what it was.
Wow.
Cellulosychic regenesis.
We recorded a fake documentary about ourselves, which I wish I still had. It was so funny.
Oh, yeah.
It was hours long.
That sounds more like a kind of prog rock band where you do 25-minute songs based on Greek myths or something.
Were you much of a gig goer I know it sounds like I'm jumping back and forth here, but I'm interested to know, before you started playing regularly with the Boo Radleys, if you were a regular gig goer, who were you going to see? What genres were you sticking with?
I kind of know the first few I went to see, because I went to see Tears for Fears after that.
Yes.
Because I liked Tears for Fears, but I really liked the support band who were called The Adventures, who never really made it. I'd love to have a listen to them, actually, see what they're like. And that was why I wanted to go. And then when my mate Togger won tickets to see Frankie Goes to Hollywood, he didn't win them. There was you had to apply for them.
Really?
Yeah. They never went on general sale, the first gigs, the first big gigs at the Royal Court.
Wow.
Yeah, you had to send in an application and got picked. So we went to see that. It was incredible.
What was their setup live, Frankie?
It was the band and then a few musicians in the shadows behind.
Right.
Massive PA, which I believe was AC/DC's PA.
Really?
They were phenomenally loud, yeah.
Well, I was going to ask, was their live, were their live sets kind of representative of what they released?
Yes.
Studio recording.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it wasn't like the demos that they'd done of Vax and stuff, which I really liked. It was the proper big production.
That must have been amazing in the Royal Court.
It was like a celebration. Yeah, it was fantastic. The best gig I ever thought was Super Furry Animals, when they were doing the 3D sound thing.
Yes.
And I thought the place was going to fall down. It was just shaking. It was incredible.
They were amazing, weren't they? That tour was the sound on that. I wonder why no one's ever done it before or since. Sorry.
The work involved, I think it nearly drove Kian crazy. So,
really?
I mean, I can't imagine trying to mix. It's hard enough to do it in stereo.
Yeah. It's crazy. That is one of the best tours I've ever seen. But then the Super Furries were always utterly brilliant.
Well, I saw the gig that when we went down to see them with Creation at the Monarch in London.
Oh, really? You were at that?
Yeah, they were supporting Powder.
Yeah. Were you going to see them, or were you going for a night out?
With my mate Mark, who was working at Creation, and he was going down there to sign them, I think.
Oh, right. Okay. What did you think on that first time seeing them?
I thought they were great, and it was very Welsh language.
Yeah, they were.
Can't remember any particular songs, but it was that was a really striking, really weird thing, because when you saw foreign bands, they all sang in English.
Yeah, it's true, isn't it? It's true. I've heard people say that. I asked that, I pushed that on the Super 8s just because they are one of my favorite bands ever of all time, and it's so hard to describe them, isn't it? If you were trying to describe them to someone who's never heard them, don't know how you would, but even live, just such great gigs. I have great memories of Super Furries.
Can I just mention a gig that happened, New Brighton, Bath?
So New Brighton, that's the Wirral side, isn't it, of Liverpool? Is that right? Yeah. Yeah.
There used to be a huge open air pool there that was built in the 40s, I think. I think they might have, for the London Olympics, they might have done the diving events there. Because it's huge, massive. Have a look at pictures of New Brighton swimming pool. Huge diving boards.
Yeah.
And when I started going with my dad, they were still there, but they'd taken the huge ones down, but still really high up. And we used to go there. We used to bunk off school and go down there, like 83, 84, just never away from the place. And they did a 2-day or 3-day gig there called New Brighton Rocks. That might be on YouTube as well. And it was Spandau Ballet and Madness and Frankie Goes to Hollywood and Eddie Grant.
Wow.
The Weather Girls. And I can't remember which one I went to see, because I know I couldn't get into the Frankie one. I definitely didn't see them. But they mixed up because me and Slice are in a few shots. I'm in the jumper that his mum knitted me. And and I had to take it back to when she had to put a zip in the side because I couldn't get my head through it.
Is that big Barnett of yours?
Yeah, they mixed up the crowd and the band, so I couldn't remember which nights. You know, I'm on. I know I'm on in the middle of a shot that I know I wasn't there at that night. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that was great. That was really good. 10 minutes from the house was incredible.
That just sounds like a kind of greatest hits of the early 80s. That's knockout.
Yeah, early mid 80s. Yeah, it's an ITV thing, I think.
Right.
Can I just ask both of you? It's only just come to me after all these episodes. Was the Radio 1 Roadshow live ever a thing for either of you as kids? Like me and my sisters, we would inevitably try and get to one of them because we'd be on holiday. We'd be on holiday somewhere, or I went to them in Lyme Regis, in Porthcawl. In fact, I saw the Manics at Lyme Regis alongside. Who were they playing alongside? Apache Indian or something like that. And then in Lyme Regis, I remember this. The day, and it was I think it was Steve Wright, and it was the day Madonna got married to Sean Penn, and we were at the Radio 1 Roadshow, and I can't for the life of me remember who the acts were. But was that because for me and for a working class family, and we didn't have lots of money, so there was we couldn't afford to go to concerts, not until I was working and as a teenager. But for me and my sisters, that was a way of seeing people that were, relevant to us, that we were hearing on the radio. Let's get down Barry Island as the radio. Was that a thing for either of you? Did either of you go to the Radio 1 Roadshow?
Never.
No.
I don't remember ever coming around. It must have done. Where were you, Chris? When you...
Well, that's the thing. I mean, I grew up in the Scottish borders in a town called Kelso, and were the Radio 1 roadshows, were they all at the seaside, or were there some kind of...
It was a coastal thing, wasn't it? It was holidaying.
So obviously the nearest place to us would have been Berwick upon Tweed, but I don't remember Radio 1 roadshow, but I do remember there was a kids' TV show called Get Fresh, in the 80s, which I was on. Actually, I was on it once as a tiny little whippersnapper. I must have been about 10, and I won a Knight Rider remote control car. But they did a roadshow, and I was away on holiday at the time. But they did a roadshow, Get Fresh Live or something, I can't remember. And that was, I think, Wet 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 played their first. What was their first song? It was like Wishing I Was Lucky or something. But yeah, Wet 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 played, but I missed them. But no bands really came to Kelso, and unless they went to the Tate Hall, and it was Daniel O'Donnell or Dominic Kerwin or Gallagher and Lyle. That was the kind of market that came. Nothing against them. Absolutely, they do what they do really well. Just not my bag.
Daniel O'Donnell, right? I used to work in Cardiff Arena in the box office from 2004, I think it was. And even then, Daniel O'Donnell's fans, and we sort of had to make preparations at the arena, they would sleep out overnight.
Really? At their age?
Yeah, exactly. Some of them, we were worried about whether they'd make it to the morning. And they'd sit outside Cardiff Arena, and they would bring everything and the kitchen sink. They'd be wrapped in blankets and sleeping bags. And Daniel O'Donnell and Westlife were consistently, in the years I was there, the fastest selling live concerts at the arena. You had to fight. Whereas the Rolling Stones couldn't give the tickets away
because they were about 200 quid a pop.
Yeah. That card, I think I took about 10 people. So,
Rolling Stones at the arena?
No, it was when they played the Millennium Stadium. I don't know what, was it the Millennium Stadium? Yeah, it would have been the Millennium Stadium, called that then. But it's so expensive, you just couldn't go in. You've mentioned, I want to pick up, this is like I'm going back a bit, but I'm interested in this because you've mentioned a few things that you've kept. It sounds like that you're a bit of a keeper, Martin Carr. I'm not going to say that to your partner because she may have otherwise, but have you kept things over the years? Because Chris and I have both kept ticket stubs, laminates, and we thought we might be a bit geeky or the odd ones out. What have you kept hold of?
I am a hoarder, definitely, but if you'd have asked me last week if I had any old stuff, I'd have said no, not much. But I've spent the last few days digging through boxes, and I've got loads of stuff. I'd never paid to get into a gig. I never bought a ticket for a gig after 1990, I don't think. So I don't really have ticket stubs, except for gigs that I really, really liked.
Oh, hang on. He's reaching for something.
I couldn't blag in to. And see Kid 606 in 2000, 2001. And I've never seen anyone just play with a laptop before. It was absolutely incredible. It was one of the most intense nights. It was just after 9/11, and we got to Paddington, Mary and I, and as we were walking through the courts, some guy ran out of W.H. Smith, waving a newspaper in the air, shouting, "Death to Americans, death to Americans," and everybody froze. I shit my pants. I kind of set the tone for the evening, and he played in Brick Lane, and he was necking 2 bottles of Budvar at a time and just smashing buttons on it, and just this incredible noise was coming out. And I thought, that's it. I never want to hear a guitar again. I just want to listen to this stuff.
I love you got that ticket. It's funny you mentioned the laptop, because you're the one that got me into Sleaford Mods. If
yes.
we're talking about laptops, I remember you saying.
I made friends with him on Twitter before I realized that he was in a band. He started asking me questions about Paul Weller. Getting on quite well. And then I realized he was in a band. I thought I should have to watch one of his videos. And I watched Tied Up in Knots, and I was thinking, oh my God, this is shit. It's just a guy. But by the end of it, I played it again. It was absolutely amazing. And first time they played Cardiff, they played at the Half Moon.
Oh yeah.
And I walked down there on my own, and it was one of the best gigs I've ever been to. And it was amazing because normally you walk into a gig in Cardiff and you know everyone. And
everyone knows you.
Yeah. I knew nobody, and it was all guys whose last gig was probably the last Jam gig in 1982. And it was fantastic. And it was just a guy shouting and a guy swigging beer.
After he presses play on his laptop.
Yeah, but it works. I go and see him every time they play Cardiff. I love them.
Do you know, I've still yet to see them live, but it took me a while, and I remember you saying, no, you've got to give it a go, and it just clicked. And in fact, they were on Jules Holland last week, and it was brilliant, and it's so simple. And I love that, not that they need to reason anything, but they're unashamed about what they are. Yeah, I write the music and I do it on my laptop and I press play. I don't need to do anything else, but I'm there. So I can practically just press play for the next song, and while he then sings his poetry. And I do think he's great. I love his lyrics, and I love the passion. I just want to ask you so many questions. Let's take Martin through the quick fire round, I reckon, because there's a few questions I want to ask that are in there. So I'm going to start. So in theory, this is quick fire, yet we have been able to make it through in any kind of quick fire way, but we'll give it a go. Who is your favorite voice or vocalist live?
Catherine Williams.
That is brilliant, Catherine, friend of the Gig Stories podcast. And if you haven't heard that episode, then check it out. She is wonderful. I love her live. Fantastic.
My introduction to Bruce Springsteen, unfortunately, was that mid-80s kind of Born in the USA stuff, which I hated and never really forgiven him for. And then I heard her do Dancing
in the Dark.
I thought, oh my God, what an incredible song. You know, stripped from that, because you listen to Bruce's and you're just getting hit by a snare drum it sounds like hitting a gong with the sun. And, I was like, oh, it's just wonderful. What a wonderful song. So she can do that. She can, find the beauty in everything.
I think I actually said it on that episode that's possibly my favorite cover of all time. I love it. I love it when she does that. It's so, I just love that voice. And she happens to be a Scouser, eh, Martin?
Yeah.
What's your favorite gig that you've been to, and also the favorite gig that you played with the Boo Radleys?
There was a gig I had just kind of lost in the midst of time now, but there was a first time I saw Mercury Rev.
Yes.
Actually, I'll tell you where it was. It was in Leeds. We drove up from Liverpool, me and my mates, and we were listening to the demos for our first or second album on the way up, and it was just crazy, and it was unlike anything I'd seen before. I think absolute chaos. The guy Dave Baker, big guy who only lasted one album, I think. We made friends with him, and we went to see him in Manchester the next night, and he just walked out in the middle of the gig to say hello to us and stood there chatting.
That's nice.
That was great.
I wouldn't have seen that coming. Mercury Rev. What an interesting band they are.
Didn't like any of the records after the first one.
Oh, you didn't like the, everyone
No.
quotes Deserter song.
No.
Is it Deserters or Deserters? It is Deserter songs, isn't it? So you never took to that, did you?
No, I think it was Dave that I liked, guy.
I like that. Yeah, you liked a person in the band, and that attracted you to them.
I think on the way home he tried to spoon the guitarist's eye out on the plane. And that was that.
Dave. Dave's never been seen with a spoon again. So what about, as Chris said then, what about your favourite? Although you said Boo Radleys, it may not be. Maybe your favourite gig as a performer was a solo. What was your favourite gig as a performer, no matter what, guys?
Oh, I remember a gig that we did in Derby, a place called Derby Bell, and it would have been 92 or something. And what song was it? We were doing a song, and the audience sang the whole verse of the song on their own, and it's the only time it ever happened. I can't remember what song it was. That was magic.
Is it good that? I have always wondered, is it annoying for you when the crowd is singing the song at you? Or
I think the only time it ever happened, and I don't know, we stopped playing and they just did it, and it was such an organic thing. And we probably just stood there grinning stupidly at each other.
Well, that's the reaction I would expect. That's the reaction I would give, definitely.
Yeah.
Something that you've written being sung back to you because people have listened to it enough times. That's quite special, that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Let's go to the opposite end now. Worst gigs, please. Worst gigs you've seen, and perhaps worst gig you were part of.
The worst gig I ever saw. That's a tough one. I don't know, because I would not normally I would just normally leave.
Oh, are you a leaver? If the gig's that bad, you leave.
Or go back to the bar. I didn't really go and see bands after a certain point. I just went to get drunk at the bar. I was at the Water Rats gig at the Oasis, and the only time I saw them was when I went to the loo halfway through and past the stage. So I just stayed at the bar.
And what about, if you're comfortable with sharing, what about as a performer? What was the worst gig?
Oh, when I was going through the phase of being too drunk to sound check, played a gig in Leeds or Sheffield. I remember David Gedge was there. He was quite good friends with Size.
Oh, the wedding present.
Yeah, and I barely got on stage, and none of the band were talking to me afterwards. I had to go separately. I had to go on the crew bus.
Is that when you know that you've fucked up?
Yeah, there was a few of them. I was too drunk to play, and it's I'm not proud of it. We had loads of bad gigs, so loads of either we were bad or everything broke down. We did. It reminds me actually when we did a road show. You had to do the road shows. You were told, you have to play the game, do the road shows, and then you'll get playlisted eventually. And we did. We met Catatoni there. It's the first time I met them, and we were promoting Come On Kids, I think. And they said, okay, well, you do those songs that you're going to do, and then you're going to do Wake Up Boo. And we said, no, we're not going to do Wake Up Boo because that was the last album. And it was one of those to-in and fro-in for hours. And we just don't want to do it. We don't want to do it. And in the end, we agreed to do it. And we got halfway through and it started skipping.
What is the loudest gig you can remember being at?
Well, the Frankie Goes to Hollywood one was incredibly loud.
You were saying the PA was massive.
Yeah.
AC/DC's. If it's AC/DC's PA, it's going to be loud, isn't it?
And then Dinosaur Jr. at the old Planet X in Liverpool.
Oh, where was Planet X? I know Liverpool venues well. Where was Planet X?
Planet X was 3 or 4 different places.
Was it?
First time I went, it was on Temple Street, which doesn't even exist anymore, the street. And it was like an old warehouse, and you went downstairs to the club.
Right, okay.
And the drums had umbrellas all over it, which looked ace. And they were there because above were the toilets, and the piss just leaked through the floor.
Wow.
No.
Yeah. And it was like an old goth club. I saw some great gigs there. I saw a death metal all day there once. And Dinosaur Jr. played, and it was incredible. So loud. It was just after Freak Scene, I think.
Sorry, who was the support act?
AP Temple and a band called Kilgore Trout. I think they might have been the same guys in 2 different bands.
Now, I'm just reminded now you're a My Bloody Valentine fan.
Mm-hmm. The first time I saw them was in St. Helens at the Citadel, and it was just after You Made Me Realise, I think, and there were very few of us there, and I think I've met everyone who was there since. Over the years.
Of course you have.
And we missed the last bus home because the last song they did was called Claire. It was like their big closer at the time. Just played it for hours and hours, and that one chord. When we all did the indie lurch around for a bit. It's just fantastic. And I went up afterwards and said hello to Kevin, and he gave me a set list, which is cool, which I've still got.
You're pointing to it. Have you actually got?
Yes, yeah. It's in 2 halves. Well, no, it's not halves. It's in 2 bits.
You've actually got the My Bloody Valentine set list. What year would that have been, Martin?
88, is it?
And would they see? I asked you about that because so many people just say, "Oh my god, I can't even go to a My Bloody Valentine gig," or if they do, they're wearing 50,000 sets of earplugs because they've always been so loud. Were they like that from the beginning?
Yeah. Not, I doubt that gig was as loud as they were, when they got a bit bigger.
Yeah.
Because we supported them on the Loveless tour. I think we did about 6 dates.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
One of the questions I wanted to ask was about, as a support band or as a, whether you were the support or someone else's support. Who did you get on the most with as a band wise? Who did you really get on and think, yeah?
Swerve Driver.
Yes.
I'm still friends with people I met in bands, and I can't even remember the bands that they were in.
That's a good sign though. That's a good sign though. Would it ever get, especially when you were the Boo Radleys there, would it ever get messy backstage? Are all these, legends, myths, is it all true? Or would you always, keep yourselves to yourselves as a band?
No, it was it's chaos after the gig. Beforehand, everyone was in a mood and a bit nervous. But then afterwards, yeah, just it's like a relief. on stage, and then you come on, because you go on stage thinking, as soon as this is over, I'm going to bed. I'm absolutely knackered, and you get off, and then you wouldn't go to bed for another 2 days.
So, were you ever paired with bands where you couldn't quite work out why?
We spotted the Gun Club in Belgium once. That was a weird one.
Really?
Yeah. And we did a Smash Hits gig with Peter Andre once. So that was ace.
That's pretty incongruous. That's
like 12 million 10-year-olds screaming. When we came up, we were still screaming. It was fantastic. And Sykes was shouting Cool Keith lyrics in between the songs. And they go, ah! And Sykes would say, "Can science achieve a unified theory of complex systems?" And they go, ah!
So this was around his mysterious girl phase, I'm guessing.
Can I just say, Martin, you and I share something in common. We've both gigged with Peter Andre.
Oh yeah? What did you do?
Yeah, I turned on Telford Christmas lights with Peter Andre, and they asked him to sing, and he turned to me and went, "Oh, I don't think I can. What if we sing a Christmas song together?" I just was like, "What? Are you kidding me? We're on stage here." And so I sang on stage with Peter Andre, and I believe it was "Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas," something like that.
Wow.
So I feel pretty rock and roll, to be honest, Martin. I think you and I were pretty much the same. You know, we've been through it all together. Peter Andre,
Mr. Tumble,
Mr. Tumble.
One of the weirdest gigs. One of the weirdest experiences we had was when we supported Sugar in America. It was the first time we played over there. We did 6 weeks. It was just so long. It was really good. And we were in snow and blazing heat. But they never let us sound check the whole time. They would sound check, and then they would play Who covers until Doors. And we never found out why. And we always wondered if it was like an initiation thing or...
And how long was that? Did you say 6 weeks?
6 weeks, yeah.
To maintain that is bordering on a cruelty, isn't it?
And they were lovely. They were lovely to us.
Hang on, if that meant that you had some kind of relationship with them, but not to the point where you could say, "Hey, Bob, can we sound check?"
We asked. We used to ask their road manager all the time, and he would just wave his arms around.
I like to think that Mouldy Bob, in interviews somewhere, says, "The Boo Radleys, oh yes, they were a strange bunch of lads. They never ever wanted to sound check, so we just used to play Who covers." Lazy bastards.
We played in Las Vegas with them the night before we went to see the Breeders, and
wow.
Breeders finished. The drummer was in a mood because of his monitors or something, I don't know what. And at the end, he kicked his drums over and walked off stage. And it's like, ooh. And then he walked back on stage and carefully put all of his drums back up again and carried on playing. And someone had pulled a gun on him backstage and told him to get back out there and play on.
Oh my God.
No way.
That's proper rock and roll, isn't it?
That's really similar to when I said no to Peter Andre and walked off stage.
Katie Price was there with a Glock. Get back on, Winters.
It's funny you should mention that, Martin, because I've mentioned it on the podcast before, and if everyone has listened to, or if anyone has listened to all of them, I've said that my worst gig was Sugar at Cardiff Uni.
I went to that gig.
Oh, did you?
We were at Rockfield, yeah, and we came down for it. And I had half a pill and had a whitey and spent most of it lying on the ground. I'll photograph that as well.
That is brilliant. So there's absolutely no point in me asking you about that gig whatsoever, is there? You can't remember it, can you? it was the worst gig ever. The sound was horrendous. So the fact that you've just told me that, and like me and, my best friend, Ray, we'd been waiting for so long to see them, for so long for them to tour. And so it was awful. So the irony to them playing for hours and hours, sound checking, and then playing Who songs, that sort of makes it worse. Wow, awful. Do you have favourite venues, Martin? Did you? I mean, that could be now, but especially back when you were touring lots.
Union Chapel, I like in London.
Oh, Union Chapel, yeah, I have.
Great sound of play. I played there with Jimmy Webb.
Oh, really?
How did that come about?
I did a tour with him because I knew his sons. I remember DJing their first gig in London, and they use Cardiff as their base music box. It's where they kind of their British base.
This is the Webb brothers, yeah.
Yeah. And when he was coming over, I think they asked if I could do the gigs with him.
Wow.
Unfortunately, they were he'd booked in huge venues and wasn't selling that many tickets.
Really?
Yeah, a lot of the gigs were really poorly attended. I mean, it was just the wrong venue,
Yeah, they would have been the right for Glenn Campbell, but maybe not for Jimmy Webb.
This is the thing. Glenn Campbell his son was actually drumming for Jimmy Webb, Cal Campbell. But that's it. He would come and sell out all those venues, singing Jimmy's songs.
It's so strange, that, isn't it?
The first time I saw Jimmy Webb was in a pizza place in Hyde Park. Pizza on the Park, is it called? And they had like a jazz supper club thing downstairs. And I saw him there in the mid-90s. I think he was hammered, absolutely hammered, but brilliant.
Are there any other venues that come to mind? Union Chapel, you mentioned. And what do you look for in a good venue when you're amongst it mid gig and it's you're having a good gig? Does it even matter, or are you still able to tell? Yeah, this is great sound. You can feel more of an atmosphere from the crowd at this particular venue, or?
Yes, I find it hard now to remember about what it was like with the band, and because I was usually quite drunk. And all I could hear was myself half the time. And now I like it's just the surroundings I like, especially if I'm playing on my own. And that's why I love the Union Chapel. It kind of feeds back into you.
Right. Okay.
Really special place.
That's about the acoustics.
They're great, and the visuals are great. Crowd is always good.
Oh, I'd love you to. The Albert Hall in Manchester has become my favourite venue.
Yeah,
and it is just fantastic. The sound in it is just incredible.
I played the Deaf Institute last time. I really enjoyed that.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's another favourite venue of mine as well. That's a funny old place because it's a really tall stage, which when someone like you walks, which when someone like you walks out on, it's like.
I had that same vibe that I had from standing on a skateboard, and I just kind of froze and. Really high up.
Albert Hall's like that as well, though. Albert Hall's really, really high stage.
Is it?
Yeah, I mean, especially as a photographer. So I've photographed a few. I did The Good, the Bad, and the Queen, Damon Albarn.
Oh yeah.
And everything. Shot all them, but I mean, you're really looking up, and you can get. What's good about that is you're shooting up, but then you get the beautiful roof behind. Because normally you're just getting black curtains or something, but in there you've just got this ornate ceiling and a balcony.
It's a old Methodist church, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's gorgeous,
really beautiful.
I played the Albert Hall, the London one, a couple of times
with the Boo Radleys.
Yeah, we did the Creation 10-year anniversary party, I think. And I asked Arthur Lee if he wanted a drink, and he asked for 10 vodka and oranges, which I bought.
Do you want a drink, Arthur? Yes, please. 10 vodka and oranges.
I found him talking to my mum. My mum was terrified. She had no idea who he was.
That is epic. I love your mum. So I'm conscious of time here. We've had you for quite a while. There's still a couple of questions I'd love to ask, because you've always given really great music recommendations, and I know that you've got a really eclectic taste as well. But purely from a live point of view, who should Chris and I go and see when, gigs are back on, and who from the past couple of years have you really gotten into live? Oh, I'm totally up for this. We've just had a little visitor join us. Sailor. Now, hands up if you've had a song named after you. Not me.
What?
This is Martin's daughter. Can I ask you, Sailor?
Yeah.
Do you like your dad's music, lovely?
Yes. He made a song about him.
I know. Is it your favourite song?
Yeah.
It's one of my favourite songs.
Sailor, what gig did we go and see?
Who have you been to see?
Katy Perry.
Wow.
Where was that?
Where was it? Do you remember?
No.
Birmingham.
No. Did you have a great time?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'll be honest, she's brilliant, isn't she? And I think I've already mentioned as well before on this that we all went to watch her at Glastonbury, and because the girls wanted to see her, and I was like, "Oh man, she's great."
And you didn't think you were going to enjoy it, but went, "Oh,
no, I didn't. I thought, it's Katy Perry, isn't it?"
That's why she's successful.
It was amazing. She was like flying up through the air and swinging off massive balloons.
It's great, and from what I could tell, I never know with that kind of artist how often they're singing live and not, but she had a great live voice.
You got a great voice, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's really good. Have you been doing that much as dad? Have you been to many sort of pop concerts and things?
That was the only one. We were going to go and see. What was the one we were going to go and see and we didn't see? We really want to see Billie Eilish. Her stuff was kind of.
That's right. Did you manage to get tickets?
We got an in.
Did you? Okay.
They had a private Catherine Williams gig.
Private Catherine Williams gig?
We couldn't go and see her, so we went to see her sound check in Bristol, and the kids told her their favourite songs of hers, and she sang them for them.
Mm-hmm.
Underground.
Yeah.
That sums up Catherine. That does. She's an absolute beaut. So, Sailor, let me ask you a question. If I could go and see anyone live, who do you think I should go and see in concert?
Mother.
Who's that?
But it's a really famous artist who does like kind of I don't know how to explain it. It's like hippie music.
It's like hippie music.
Oh, I'm there. I love hippie music.
And they're called Mother.
No, two boys, 2 girls.
2 boys, 2 girls.
Mother.
The weird haircuts. Oh, yeah.
Taylor, you're our youngest guest so far. That's fantastic. Thank you.
I like it. I like that recommendation. Do you know what? You can stay with us, Sailor. We're going to ask your dad one more question.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I can't answer that one.
No. To be honest, I don't even care what your answer is now. We've got someone who's young and hip who's given us Mother. So I am genuinely going to go and check them out. We both Chris and I, we love listening to live albums as well and live tracks, and so we ask everyone for a recommendation. Is that something that you've done over the years? Has live albums sort of been?
I'm a fan of live versions of stuff.
Yeah,
I can't bear it when Glastonbury's on and we have to listen to it. I just don't think it translates well. But there are a few. I love Tim Buckley's live album.
Yes.
But I really love Bill Withers, his live album, which is in London. I can't remember. I can't remember where he is.
Yeah, I think his is, isn't it? And what a voice as well. What a live voice. Bill Withers, just incredible.
He just seems like such a lovely man.
Yeah, I think it's a shame that it took him dying for people to reappraise him and go, you know, it was more than his massive hit. Do you know what I mean? There was so much more to his writing and his voice than Lovely Day.
Yeah, I remember seeing a documentary that he made or was made about him about 5 or 6 years ago, I think. And it's just his attitude was incredible. And at one point he says, at some point you have to realize that you're as good as you're going to get and be happy with that. And I thought that was illuminating and depressing at the same time.
Yeah, it depends what mood you're in taking that one. So if you just choose one for us to link at the end of the podcast and put on our website.
My favorite live thing ever is the B-side of Stray Cat Strut, and it's a song called "Drink That Bottle Down." And I think it was recorded in Newcastle in like 1981. Hang on, Sailor. And it's the double bass player who sings it. Double bass player, Lee Rocker. He just shouts it, and it's a slow blues, and it's got two of the best guitar solos.
I did not expect that answer.
You can smell the smoke and the booze, and I love it.
My cat.
You are absolutely right. That is exactly how we should finish this podcast, is with your cat. Because, quite frankly, everyone's had enough of Martin Carr, haven't they? They just want Martin Carr's cat. What's the name of the cat?
Chickpea.
Oh, Chickpea.
Yeah.
Chickpea.
Oh, that makes me feel awkward. I'm not going to lie to you, Sailor, because just 2 hours ago I had a chickpea curry. So, on that,
I'm off to have some hummus.
Martin Carr, Sailor Carr, thank you so much.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you, both of you.
There we go. Beautiful Martin Carr.
That was worth waiting for, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. He is. I love Martin. He's one of the greatest people I know, and I've known him for quite a while. After the Boo Radleys, he relocated to Cardiff, as we mentioned, and that's how I got to know him. And when he was releasing his solo stuff as Brave Captain he's a lovely man, and he is super talented. It's ridiculous. And it has been, and we know that he's not been on the Boo Radleys reunion, but he has been out and he was supporting the Charlatans. And I'm sort of, again, selfishly, I'm pleased that they've had to reschedule some of those Charlatans dates, which he is supporting on, because when they were in Leeds, and that's when you and I were hoping to go and see him. Well, I think it was in Wales, in Wrexham, but that was cancelled. And then over in Leeds, they had to reschedule, but I couldn't go. I couldn't make it because of work. So they've rescheduled those dates. So hopefully we'll be able to go and see Martin. But also off the back of that, he's going to be playing some festival dates as well this summer. So I'm just honestly overjoyed, because his solo stuff, if you know nothing of it, honestly, you are in for a treat. He's got a great musical mind, and he's just fantastic. And he gets some good airplay as well on Six Music. So go and listen to his stuff. And he is not one for interviews like that normally, Martin. So I really appreciate him taking time and an effort to do it, which I don't know if you know, and I'm just off the top of my head here. I saw that Tim Burgess tweeted something similar this morning. I think the royal we assume that if someone is the lead singer of a band or an artist like that they obviously love doing interviews and they love talking about themselves and their music, and that's just not the case, and we shouldn't really expect that.
No, absolutely. I think this was off the back of an interview that one of the musicians performing at Six Music did an interview with Six Music, and it was obvious that they were uncomfortable during the interview. And fair enough. But, I think there was a little bit of a Twitter pile-on. Well, that's never happened before. But no, absolutely. Their job is pretty much to make music and to perform the music, and promotion for a lot of people, especially for a lot of the reasons why musicians do what they do. It's a very personal thing, and that the music is the be-all and end-all. So to criticize people for not giving an interview which is all sunshine and light, just wind it in, basically. I think that's what Tim was saying, and fair enough.
Exactly. And they don't find it easy. Why do we try and just put everything? I mean, as you all well know, I can talk for Britain, but I certainly can't write and perform a song. So, we have different things. So yeah, I really appreciate Martin taking time for us there. And Giant Steps is just one of my favorites. One of my favorite albums. Just
incredible. Has it got an anniversary coming up?
Yes.
30 years next year? Yeah, it will be
1993. Yeah, so 2023.
Well, if you haven't heard Giant Steps, if your knowledge of the Boo Radleys starts with Wake Up Boo, just go one album back, just go to Giant Steps, and it will blow your mind. It's if you can get the best speaker system or listen to it in headphones.
Yes.
It's a sonic journey, that album. And it's just tender and explosive and massive and tiny all at the same time. It's just an absolute gem. And we don't know what's going to happen. Are Boo Radleys going to do anything with the anniversary? Would it be the full lineup? We don't know, but I know that they're on decent terms anyway. So
I would love to think that would happen, and this is just us talking as fans now.
No, absolutely.
I would love to see that original lineup play Giant Steps in full. If they played it in full as well, oh my gosh, that would be incredible. Yeah. Well, thank you as always for listening, and please tell us how wonderful you think we are, and how much I just talk, and I should probably let Chris talk more. Please let us know. We don't care.
No,
we just
absolutely.
Crave interaction. That's all we want.
Well, no, not so much interaction actually, but if you've listened to this episode, and if you could just go to Apple, the Apple podcast doodah, the app, and just click
the Apple podcast doodah.
Yeah, but just click the 5 stars. Click on the 5 stars. Leave a little review, and
on the Apple doodah.
On the Apple doodah. But it's again, I've mentioned this before, it's not to make us feel good about ourselves. It means that it makes our podcast more visible when people are searching for things to listen to, and it means that more people can find the podcast. So click on the 5 stars. 4 stars is all right, but really 5 star, anything less than 4 stars, you can just leave
the doodah.
Go.
Step away from the doodah.
Yeah, absolutely. But anyway, and we will be back with a new episode, not one that's a year old and that we've had to kind of blow the dust off. We will come back with the next episode very, very shortly.
See you soon. Thanking you.
Bye.